Show your T-Ball Team spirit and buy your hard-working Art Lab team a cup of coffee, which helps fuel purchases of high-octane equipment and T-Ball tech that get poured back into percolating, highly caffeinated content for you. Just go to buymeacoffee.com and search Therapy Bites.
On this episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Dr. Fox is in the Art Lab today to teach you how to determine who is driving the bus in your life and take control of the wheel. He's going to teach you how to use your vision so that you can determine the targets you hit, including, and most of all, success. How to turn transformation into transFUNmation, and how change doesn't always have to be painful. Dr. Fox has been on 14,000 hours of global stages. He's developed an adventure to success that is engaging, insightful, exciting, memorable, even mesmerizing. He holds a doctorate in both psychology and clinical hypnotherapy. He started out on the PGA Tour as creator of the first psychological golf infomercial on the Golf Channel. He has continued his career in film and television. He's won over 30 awards, most notably an Emmy Award as a producer. Dr. Fox continues his career in front of audiences around the globe, all the while expanding his own entrepreneurial journey. Guys, Dr. T practices what he preaches, and he's here with a sermon from the pulpit of success for you. Dr. Travis has been named by Yahoo Finance as a top 20 entrepreneur, and even more recently, a top 20 Instagram influencer. Travis has been on radio shows, podcasts, and television programs across the country, some which include the Dew Sweepers on XM Radio Saturday mornings, as well as Sigurd Vidal and Travis Chappell and more. You're in for quite a ride. As I've said in the intro, buckle those seatbelts. Here's Dr. Travis Fox.
Stay tuned following the interview for On the Couch and Off the Rocker. Our special guest's psycho-silly analysis by Art Lab's own head cabbager, Dr. Ima Freudnot.
Welcome to Therapy Bites Art Lab, where Dr. Heath and his special guests share real-life stories of helping and healing, fresh from the actual therapy couch, while taking a bite out of common counseling missteps and misconceptions. And now, here's Heath and the T-Ball Team.
But hey, welcome to Therapy Bites Art Lab, everybody. We had the pleasure, as we said in the intro, of having world-class coach and transformational scientist in the studio today on Therapy Bites Art Lab, Dr. Travis Fox. And we're going to talk about big vision, the psychology of transformation. How do you get to where you are, to where you dream of being? And Dr. T is here to tell us all about that today. Travis, thanks and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks for letting me be here. You know, I've in my entire career, I have to say, and I want to give you credit, I've never been called a scientist. That was kind of cool. I had to stop and kind of take that in for a second. I'm like, me? Is he talking? I'm like, you met the other Dr. Travis, right? I'm like, me? I'm like, no, I'm just a dork. I'm just a goof. I don't know. He's got me confused with somebody else. But thank you. Compliment. I'm pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks. You know, and the way I look at it is we should all be a scientist of our own life. And the problems I see patients run into, because I'm a practicing psychotherapist and I see patients every day, you know, sometimes more hours in a week than I probably should. But the difficulty I see people run into is that they're not a scientist of their own thinking. And those that are listening can't see me tapping my forehead. But we each need to be better scientists of our own thinking, because one of the things we have in the Art Lab is that we first engineer our thoughts, and then our thoughts engineer our lives. And that takes experimentation, that takes coming up with a hypothesis and testing that hypothesis. In other words, I think it's this way, I think it's that way. Well, yeah, fine, that's great, but how would you know? And I was going to say this a little bit later. I'll go ahead and jump into it, because we had a little bit of a pre-show discussion about something I heard you say on another podcast about limiting beliefs. And you hear that it's almost a social media meme, limiting beliefs. And I love what you said. And it took me, you know, I think I went to bed thinking about this. and it probably kept me awake. So thank you for that. But it was valuable
You're
time
welcome.
spent. I thought limiting beliefs, and what you said was it's not necessarily limiting. Who said it was limiting? But tell us more about that.
Yeah. So when I was going through, I'm one of those. You talk about being a scientist, which is why I appreciate the compliment and the further clarification on the definition, because I believe in experimentation. The entire ideology of our life is transformation. We have gotten lost, I believe, in this thing that we call self-help, and it's been here for about call it 4 decades for round, and it has this illusion that you can just help yourself and all of a sudden you mysteriously change. Well, that's like saying, hey, go build a house. Just because you live in a house doesn't mean you know how to build one. Doesn't make sense. So I've always been contrarian, not with a malicious intent to destroy, but to go, who said? Because I can take any theology book, pick any religion you want across the world. They all have that same comment of ask, and you shall receive. Start with the basic text of using the Christian ideology, right? The Buddhist revelation, I become, therefore I am, therefore I become. And so when we start looking at these things, people go, well, I've got this limiting belief structure. I go, well, wait a minute. Listen to the sentence you just said to me. And I love that scientist, the way you describe it, Doc. And if you don't mind, I'm going to kind of take the whole conversation from that point of view. And that is, if I say I've got a limiting belief structure, that means there's 2 of us in that sentence having a conversation, not the person I'm speaking to, me and myself. There is the part of me that says, I acknowledge that there is a belief. I'm not even sure what it is, but I acknowledge it's there. Then I have this other personality part that is judging whether that belief is limiting or it is a pro or a con. Well, who is that? And where did that personality part come from? Obviously, it's your ego. When you look at that structure, it's a personality division of the ego. But then you ask the second question, where did it come from? And what's its driver? What's its emotional structure, or what's its thematic or theme? So for what we do at the Ultimate Business Quest and the architectural section is say, look, we can go down this deep clinical road, and you better off going talking doc than you are to me. I'm all about fun. I moved away from clinicals 15, 16 years ago. I like to make it fun because I believe everyone should have these skills when we're masters. We are masters when we're back using the law of curiosity, when we're back in that imprint stage and the 7 after the first one going into 7 into 14, we're still masters. We believe that we can achieve anything. We believe we can be the president of the United States. We can believe we can be the richest man or woman in the world. And then it is slowly compressed and suppressed and oppressed out of us as we graduate into high school and in some cases university with lines like this. Hey, doc, you're graduating high school now. You better figure out what to do with the rest of your life. What's your passion? What's your purpose? Find your soulmate. And you give these words. And I'm going to come back to why limiting becomes this very interesting, judgmented, fragmented neurosis that we all become, is because we're told then, well, wait a minute. You only get to be a child once. So enjoy it. Okay, I'm trying to enjoy it, but you guys keep telling me to be an adult. But I've mastered imagination. I've mastered playing. I've mastered fun. I've mastered experimenting. And now I've got to transform instantly the day I graduate and become an adult, but I have no frame of reference. I have no blueprint. I have no idea what it means to be an adult. Yeah. So think about it. Why do we have such a high rate of college dropout coming into freshman year? Because we have no idea how to manage our time. We have no idea what it means to be self-sufficient. We have no idea what our passion is, what our purpose is. Instead, we go to 2 more years of general education that we just spent the last 12 doing, and we're bored out of our mind because we were told you have to go be an adult now. You got to go find what you're going to do for your living. We're not with our parents anymore. So now all of a sudden we're thrust into the deep end of the pool, and we've got to go into critical judgment about everything. Well, when you're in search mode, as you undoubtedly know, and all of your listeners probably do too, the conscious mind is built as a guardian of defense. That's its job. It's a judgment. Now, in the metaphor that we use in the Business Quest, imagine a castle. That castle has 4 walls on it, 4 turrets, and inside is the keep where the king and queen live. We'll call the king and queen your subconscious. It's what's inside making the whole kingdom run. Standing outside that drawbridge that opens up and down like that, there's this little guard with a spear that says, hey, doc, who goes there? And it kind of determines who gets in. That's the representation, family, of your conscious mind.
I love that.
It is a representation of the limited power of our conscious mind. Because remember, a castle has 4 walls, but that guard's only in one wall in that one little drawbridge. That means there's 3 other walls that anything through what we call osmotic hypnosis or osmotic suggestion can get into your subconscious. And then there's two other ways, which is tunneling under the walls or coming up over the top. So there's 5 times likely that a belief is going to get past your conscious guard and get into your subconscious and become a reality. Well, if you don't know how to go into the blueprint and start looking, like you said, and start really looking at, where did my belief come from? What's the emotional trauma? And by the way, for all of you think that trauma is limited to emotionality or just your psychology, dream on. We deal every single day around the world at the Business Quest. I mean, I'm talking tens of thousands of people in the app who have business trauma. They have absolute business trauma, and their business trauma is now bleeding into their personal life, bleeding into their relationship life. And ultimately, we get into things like self-sabotage. And now we're back full circle to these things that we call limiting belief structures. Why can't my company go past 7 figures, Doc? Why can't I break out? Why won't it be buy? Why? And we ask all these why questions. By the way, let me save you guys a lot of time. Every time you ask a why question, it's going to start with a because answer, which means everything after the because is rationalized. Stop. Change your questional sequencing. Look at the thematics, which is when you look at the theme, which is really where we come from, and what I now have dubbed architectural psychology, which is my 30+ year journey in this entire space and working with corporations.
Architectural psychology. I've never ever heard that term before. We should talk about that. But I wanted to ask you and see what your thoughts were. I'm trying, so I can get my head wrapped around what you're saying there, because I think it's so valuable for our listeners. And that is that, it's been my experience that these beliefs you're talking about, tunneling under, going over, and I would call that implicit processing that occurs at a subliminal, a subconscious level. And I know you have a doctorate in hypnotherapy, and I'm board certified in hypnotherapy. It's one of my favorite things, one of my favorite questions to answer. People say, can anyone be hypnotized? And I will give an example. It may be a silly example of, when's the last time you thought about the shoes on your feet or the SpongeBob underwear that you're wearing? And I'm not making that up. I actually have a pair of SpongeBob underwear. But people don't think about that because the brain subliminates it, so that we could function and do other things like walk and talk and eat and work and pick our nose, which we shouldn't do during flu season. But it's sublimated. And the point is, based on my definition of hypnosis, we spend a great deal of time in a hypnotic state because so many things we simply can't attend to. My point being, that's when these beliefs slip in and we don't even know they're there. I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think that we actually have beliefs and we don't know they're there?
Yeah, first of all, let's backpedal. And I didn't disclose this up front. I have a doctorate in clinical hypnotherapy. I've been practicing hypnotherapy for 25 years. My PhD is over in psychology specific, but then my second doctorate's in clinical hypnotherapy.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been in this space. I've hypnotized over 1 million people.
Oh, my.
I'm absolutely 100% in agreement with you. In fact, I'll go the other direction. In both of our careers, you and I combined, we have never hypnotized a single. It's more often than not, it's waking yourself up from the automatic hypnosis that's keeping you from transforming. Hence the psychology of transformation.
Ah, fantastic. I completely agree. And I think most people come to me and they say, they do think that. They think you're going to do something to me. You're going to put me in a state, when they don't realize I'm not the one doing it. When they realize I'm not the one doing it, they're doing it for themselves. You left off saying that neither of us in our whole career has ever hypnotized somebody. And I love that. Because what I hear people say is, oh, you're going to do something to me. And it's not. The way I look at it is, I'm teaching them to leverage a resource that they already use, but they just don't know they're using it.
We're kindred spirits. And for those of you listening to the podcast, this is the first time Doc and I've ever talked or met. So this is not a pre-scripted scenario for me to agree with the host to sound really cool. I have been black sheep, and no such thing as external hypnosis. It's all auto. And we all know that by clinical, but that's not what I mean. We think we're cognitively awake. We think we're cognitively making decisions, but decisions are automated processes. They've already happened. They happened to the subconscious, and then you became aware of it. We're talking about moving from decision to choice, where I'm actively, consciously competent because I'm aware of what I'm choosing, both from the thematic level, meaning the emotional driver, what it is I'm choosing to do because I choose. I don't need to rationalize it, justify it, anything. I'm choosing it because I am, and I choose it, and then move whatever the action step is. I firmly agree with you. When people come to me all the time, say, you know, hey, to adulthood, go find your passion, find your purpose, find your soulmate, but you don't have a blueprint to do it. Well, we don't even have a blueprint of how our freaking brain works unless you specifically go and study it. And yet we have the gall to go out there and say the self-help industry is $936 billion as of 2021, if memory serves.
Oh my.
$936 billion a year in self-help. Well, all we're helping ourselves do is become codependent and doing the same thing over and over again, looking for a dopamine pop and expecting change. That's the definition of insanity. It is the addiction at its finest place.
I agree. That is so very true. I have a buddy that does concrete, and he said, you know, it seems like in the summertime, everyone with a wheelbarrow and a shovel thinks they're a concrete guy. And the self-help industry is kind of the same as concrete business. Everybody with a story thinks that they can be a self-help pro, and they do so without a whole lot of lived experience, certainly, you know, not a lot of background in education and all that. And I'm all right with lack of education as long as there's some systematized approach to get people from point A to point B, and that's matched with some actual lived experience that works. And I tell my fellow clinicians, you know, I don't just practice this stuff on TV. I practice it in real life or on YouTube or, you know, the podcast platforms. But I think that being genuine and being authentic is so important in this field, because if what you're doing doesn't work for you, it's not going to work for anybody else. So when I talk about hypnosis, I practice it. When I talk about mindfulness, I practice it. But it's something that each of us can learn how to master and should, because if you have a human brain, you already have all the tools you need to do what Dr. Travis is talking about doing. You come to the table with the tools, and we're here to help you learn how to use those tools.
Yeah, you're spot on. I'm a firm believer. And again, you know, my resume will tell you I've hypnotized over 1 million people over my career. And I always come on stage and say everything you heard, and that is an absolute lie. I've never hypnotized anybody in my entire life. What I have done is I've introduced people to the hypnosis that's keeping them from becoming who they really are. That's what I do. And that's where I got really interested in transforming our educational system, much to your point a moment ago, where people, I'm like, look, we send people out of our high school and we call this a high school education, which is an absolute travesty by its definition. There's nothing high about it, except for maybe the marijuana that the kids are doing on the side. There's nothing high school about it. What it is an indoctrinational process into a form of self-hypnosis. Conform, comply, suppress your own personality parts, get into subconscious modeling so you can fit into the cool kid clique, whatever clique that is, whether it's drama, band, geek, athletic, I don't care, whatever it is, right? And you stop your own personal development, only then to discover somewhere around 25, 30, 35, well, heck, who the hell am I? What is my passion, Doc? What is my purpose? Who is my soulmate? Well, that's because, first of all, when you go back to your authentic self, we haven't been authentic most of our lives. We're running around being somebody else. At least when I'm in producing a film or television, you know, I'm doing it. It's very much in front of your face. But people go, well, no, I'm being authentic. I'm like, how do you know you're being authentic?
That's a good question. How would you know? And no one's taught that. When I was, I think you're about the same age as I am. Maybe you wear it better. You're a little bit younger, maybe. But I remember a song by Pink Floyd. Now, no offense to anybody, I've never been a big Pink Floyd fan, but there's a song that I recall from my my high school days, Another Brick in the Wall. And I think that is what we're teaching young people, is just to be like everybody else and be another brick in the wall. And by the way, this is a little bit graphic, but in the video, which is a really early video, it showed the high school kids lining up and they were falling into a meat grinder. Mm-hmm. They were falling into a meat grinder. Each and everybody listening to this podcast, if you are just like everybody else, if you're just like the 1,000 people in your friend group on Facebook, then 999 of you are redundant. 999 of you are unnecessary, because we only need one of you. And in fact, we do have one of you, but let's stop trying to mold ourselves against and about and like everybody else, because we don't need you to be like everybody else. More than one Doc Heath would be one too many. And being authentic, this is what you get. If you're watching me on camera, man, I'm this way from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. I'm a nerdy guy. I live life in a way that I think brings fulfillment and purpose and meaning. And to do that, as Dr. T talked about, you have to know how the mechanism works. But what, Dr. Travis, what do you find people say when you try to teach them these things? Because I would expect that, like you get some pushback.
Everything you said is clinically spot on. I agree with you 100%. Here's the problem. It's not fun. Nothing personal. It wasn't fun for me either. It's not fun for any of us. Here's why. Because we make it so academic and we keep it in such a bubble. And then we try to put out these little pieces of it. Well, we're going to work on this transformation. We're going to do rebirthing, or we're going to go over here and do childhood trauma. Great. The problem we've designed our entire system, and what our company is about and what it's solving, is we have bifurcated self-transformation and business development as two separate silos. Like they're two separate sequences. Here's the example. Either A, I go on the self-transformational development and I do that most of my life, but I end up in woo-woo land and I don't know how to translate it into my business world. Vice versa. I'm in my business world. I'm going out to make all the money I can. I'm going to make my mark. And then I'm probably going to crash and burn because I'm completely out of balance of my own life. And then I have a midlife crisis. And then I swing over into the self-transformation to see if I can realign myself. The challenge with that is, in both scenarios, the number one asset that is expelled is time, for which we all know we don't get back. And it makes no sense. When we have a blueprint, now, I'm not saying a blueprint for everybody to conform. Do not misinterpret what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, here is how the mechanism works, if I can quote you, Doc. Here's the conscious, here's the subconscious, here's the emotional traumatic level, and here's the thematic. But what if the third component that we haven't talked about yet is called the sequencing? I am a huge proponent, and I have been on this soapbox for the better part of 2 decades now, that it is the sequencing that has caused, at least in part, Doc, this bifurcation of the two silos and the segregation that creates us into this space of our own self-hypnosis. And that is because we have been conditioned to believe, when we go out onto our journey of life, generally from high school, university, somewhere in there, that it is mind, body, and spirit is how we're supposed to work. Here's the problem. If I'm starting with mind can't solve itself. I mean, look, let's quote the great Einstein: that which created the problem can't solve it. And we don't have a blueprint on how do we actually get past our own conscious guard. You remember that little guy that's standing out in front of the castle? Well, that conscious guard has a big thing, and is a cousin who's standing on the other side of the drawbridge called your ego. He's equally as small, or she's equally as small, but constantly talks to the other guard and goes, we control this castle. Nobody gets in or out of this castle unless we say so. And it's so focused on it, so convinced that it's got it under control, that, you remember, 5 times as likely. And again, it's called osmotic hypnosis. It gets into your subcon, and then you've appointed one of those guards, because then you fracture off another personality that says, well, that's a limiting belief structure. Well, because Dr. Heath said so, because Dr. Fox said so. I'd never said it was a limiting belief. I think limiting beliefs is the limiting belief itself. That's the fundamental problem. So our sequencing has put us on a path of collision with insanity, or at least in the base case, neurosis, because we're trying to solve our mind all the time with the mechanism that we're trying to solve, which is the mind itself. Doesn't make sense. And then if you reverse that model, though, and I qualify spirit any way you want. I'm not here to tell anybody what to believe, but let's agree on 2 basic fundamental concepts. And these are based, you can take any major religion, any major theology, or any major philosophy, and this will still apply. If we all believe in some form or another, there is this afterlife from this human form that we are currently in. It therefore stands to reason, for us to inhabit said human form, we must have come from somewhere in order to become. Therefore, the bookends of spirituality, however you define that, before life, afterlife, are constant, which means there's a part of you inside this mortal coil, yours and mine, Doc, that is beyond Travis and Heath. That's just the name. In fact, we'll go even further to prove how hypnotized both of us are. And everyone listening to this show and everybody on this planet, the fact is, I didn't even name myself. I went, okay, I'll be called Travis because my mom and dad.
That's a good point.
I never even chose my own name.
Yeah.
But we walk around and go, but I'm a full grown man or I'm a full grown woman. No, you're not. You were hypnotized before you realized it. And here's the better part. Depending on the level of awareness of your parents or your parental influences, right? We call them mother-father pillars, right? You got those 4 pillars, mother, father, religion, and culture that kind of make up your subconscious framework as we start in the imprint stage. So whatever that mother-father pillar around you, depending on their awareness of this process that we're describing, again, in brevity, then you're subject to that. And then you've got to go out and try to find it. Well, that's like from a bunch of banging your head around in a dark room looking for the light switch and expecting, there to mysteriously become a door. And that's how most people go through life. And it has been an absolute travesty to watch. It's been thoroughly enjoying what we've created over the last several years. And that's why the app, and this will be my bona fide shameless plug for all of you listening, but I am sick and tired of you needing to go to some seminar with some knucklehead like me or Dr. Heath, who got a bunch of letters after name, who think we know something about something. We only know 2 things. We know Jack and we know crap. Everything else we're making up. To quote Doc, it's a theory. It's based on hypothesis and practical of statistics of what experience we've had or not had based on these results of application. That's
our best guess.
There's no such thing as expert. I mean, my mentor and master, Doc, was amazing. He came to me and said, do you even know the etymology of the word doctor, Travis? And I said, well, no. He says, well, why don't you go look it up, smart guy? So I went and looked it up. And it derives from a Latin word that means teacher. So if I'm lucky enough in this life, Doc, to be called a teacher of anyone, I've achieved my objective. But we have objectified, and even in some cases, starified, if I can make up that word, that doctors in any fashion or format. And I'm not disrespecting any of us. We all take a hell of a journey to get those little letters.
Sure,
They're great for dinner reservations, but it still means we're on a process ourselves. We have not arrived. And that is the illusion I think that all of us get subject to, because now we get stuck in the seriousness of it. Hold on a second. You spent 17 years of your life, Doc, and everyone listening to this show, myself included, mastering one theme: fun. Mm-hmm. You mastered it as a kid. No one needed to tell you to go have fun. In fact, more often than not, your parents are telling you to knock it off, calm down, get serious, because you were a master at it. And then all of a sudden, around 17 or 18, we graduate high school, fun, all of a sudden, we got to get serious about life. Well, what the hell does that mean? That's dichotomous as all get out. I don't know what it means to be serious about life. Does that mean I have to take death more seriously? Does that mean I have to be more authentic? Which, by the way, how are you more authentic? You're either authentic or you're not.
That's a good point. It's almost an oxymoron.
Yeah, it's not a leveler, but we use it as a leveling word. I'm like, no, leveling is a psych technique that we use in a completely different model. It has nothing to do with the word more. You're either authentic or you're not. And if I quote the great Yoda from Empire Strikes Back, there's no try, there's do or not.
Oh, I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
And the thing about fun, you've really kind of changed my paradigm there, because it really dawns on me as I hear you talking that we're kind of told to have fun as we're kids, and that is part of the human experience. But I'm a bit of a existentialist philosopher at heart that values all human experience. So think of it this way: what sense does it make to leave behind in our childhood one of the most essential parts of our humanity, and that is having fun? I mean, why would we leave that behind?
Well, let's take that one step further. Every person who got into business, whether you're an employee, a C-level executive, you're an entrepreneur, you're an online marketer, whatever your thing is, man, coach, teacher, trainer, facilitator, you got into it for one theme. Every single one of us is going to answer the same: freedom.
Yeah.
Because you want to have that freedom to go have fun, travel whenever you want. So wait a minute. You spent 17 years mastering fun, and now you're going to go out and get serious about business. First of all, you have no frame of reference about serious. Let's cut the crap. And secondly, you're learning business because you're still learning it. And everything you learned, you had to go apply to the real world. And it's completely different than what we learned in school. That's theory versus the actuality. So the entire quest of the ultimate business quest was 2 things. And I hold myself in contempt here, Doc. So when I say this, I'm talking about me and all the others, but in particular myself. We don't need to go out and charge seminars where we charge people $30, $40, $50, $60,000 to give them a sliver of this. It doesn't make a damn bit of sense. That's just absolute codependency. That's why the industry is $936 billion a year in the self-help industry. Well, if we're helping ourselves, Doc, then why are we spending a dang near $1 trillion every year to do it? That doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
Wow.
We're really just and I'm going to say it straight up. So here we go, kids, hold on for the ride. We're going to have a little fun. We are just mentally masturbating, saying that we're helping ourselves by justifying. We went to an event. You went to Travis Fox's event. I paid $30,000 to become an architect. And guess what? Now what? I'm still doing the same crap. That's my point. And that became my impetus and my frustration with both our educational system and the self-help industry at large. And I'm a part of both. So I hold myself in contempt. Well, I can hold myself in contempt or I can do something about it. So I went back to my board and I said, we need to change this entire model. That's why the Ultimate Business Quest app is free. We said, look, everybody needs this because then the collective species evolves all on its own. You don't have to go, well, we need to raise our consciousness. No, you don't. You need to stop being a knucklehead and pull your head out of the sand because you never learned how to get your head out of the sand. And it wasn't your fault. And I'm not making a victim or a martyr out of you. You just didn't get trained on it. But isn't that a part of the indoctrinal process into mass hypnosis? Yes. Because if I can control your thought process and get your belief structure so deeply embedded in your subconscious, you'll be basically a mediocre individual your entire life and think it's a good life. That is the most evil form of hypnosis you could possibly imagine. And I'm ruthless against it. Ruthless. When I see it, I call it out. And I'm like, I've spent 30 years of my life mastering this around the world to realize my master was training me to go, listen, Fox, I know you think you're all that in a bag of chips because you go on, you got this, you're on TV and all this other crap. He goes, but here's the deal. He goes, I didn't do all this with you, and I have not trained you for this long and walked with you this long. And he was literally my father figure in my life. And he said, I taught you this, and I walked you through your school, and I put you through hell so you could teach the people how to wake themselves up. They're already hypnotized. It's nothing to do with putting them to sleep, you knucklehead. You got it all wrong. And it was like a light bulb. And then just like the great architect of the universe, I was a 1-2 punch. My third child was born, and my second son, my third child, but he was born autistic. Now, Doc, when I went through, autistic was still categorized and really kind of segregated into mental retardation, or it was into SID, or an extreme case of ADHD. And I went, okay. Now, here comes the rub of this whole thing. Here's the great Travis Fox, the great master communicator. I got all these awards and Emmys and blah, 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 blah. And I'm a master communicator. I've been on stage my whole life, blah, blah, blah. I can't have a conversation with my autistic son, Doc, because I have no idea how to communicate in that frame. And that's when it hit me. I was like, wait a minute, our sequencing's wrong. We're trying to go, I can't talk to an autistic through mind. They don't communicate that way. They communicate emotionally, in most cases, non-verbally. Oh, snap. First of all, autistics are anything but retarded. They're highly intelligent creatures. And if anything, our own self-hypnosis is being exposed by these daring souls who have come in to become autistic in this life. Whatever your belief structure is, that's for you to determine. But they came in to be autistic in this life to show us how literally Neanderthalic we are in our thought processing and our communication ability. And the massive lesson that I have learned from my son, I thought I was present, Doc. I was never present. And it's personified in a story that I've told 1,000 times, and you'll hear me every time I'm on stage or a podcast, or if you're on my podcast, you're going to hear it. Corey was 7 years old, and we were in Atlanta, Georgia. And, every kid plays in a pile of leaves. You and I, we jump the pile of leaves, throw them around, we act like no. Not Corey. Corey stands there and he stares at the pile. And I'm standing outside and I'm watching him, Doc, and I'm like, I have no idea what he's doing. So I'm sitting there just staring at him, and he stares at it, and he grabs these 2 leaves and he stares at them, and he looks at them. I'm looking, I'm like, well, they can't be that dang interesting. They almost look the same. They're both brown and they're both from a pile on the driveway. So what the heck's he looking at? And he just stares at them. And then he ever so slowly and with the utmost of diligence and presence starts to crumble them. And he is in it. He's feeling, his kinesthetics are on overload. He's like, oh my God, he's screaming. And then he starts to modulate. He's flapping all over the place, and he's excited as all get out about crushing leaves. I had never been that present in my entire life until that moment. And I watched him do it 3-4 times where he just crushed these leaves. I'd never crushed a leaf like that in my life with that kind of diligence and that presence, the appreciation of the feeling of it. What was that crackling sound? What did it smell like? I was off in hypnosis land thinking I was awake. Again, the joke's on me. And I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm absolutely just bawling. And I finally realized, holy crap, it's the sequencing issue. We can't go mind, body, spirit. It's completely wrong. You can't master your body if your mind's completely off in neurotic land, or all you think about is business, or if you're worrying, anxiety, limiting belief structures. We'll go back to that again, right? We haven't mastered our bodies yet. We as men in particular, again, if we're just good basic gender, male, female. You can do the identification later, kids. For now, we're just going to call it male, female. Right? You can choose whatever you want to identify as a truck. Great. Who cares? Not.
A Ford truck, hopefully. A Ford truck, hopefully. By the way, I just want to point out one thing. It amazes me as you share that experience. Listeners, viewers, attend to this, is that Dr. Travis, a double doctorate, just explained to you how his son had an experience that a guy with a double doctorate has never had. And yet, I mean, me either. And yet, we label his son disabled.
Right.
Well, now wait a minute. Which one is disabled here? I mean, come on. Which one?
Amen.
Because how many people do you know? I mean, even yourself, listener, how often or how able are you to literally be in the moment, fully, completely, inextricably in the moment? We're always looking to get to the next thing, the newest thing, the best thing, the better thing. And Dr. T's son was in the moment. I know people who have practiced mindfulness for decades, and they can't pull that off.
No, and I think that's part of the illusion of the self-help industry, is being present has to be this woo-woo experience.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It literally, and the second lesson that I finally learned, I learned on Mount Kilimanjaro. I climbed Kilimanjaro when I was 48 years old. Never climbed a mountain before in my life. I'm an ocean kid. I'm like, and that was one of those moments where you want to talk about, again, we're going back to however you define spirit. We call it architect and great architect. You figure out however you want to label it. I'm not here to label that for anybody. They all have their validity. The reality check is, that was one of those conversations when I was invited to go to Kilimanjaro. It was like my spirit jumped out of my body and said yes before I even had the cognitive awareness of what I had just said. I agreed to go climb a 19,340 foot tall mountain in the middle of Africa that I've never climbed a mountain before in my life. And my oh yeah, let's do that. That's a great idea. And then I remember when I hung up the phone, I was like, what in the heck did I just agree to? What are you, nuts? You're going to die out there.
That was my question.
Every day. What are you, stupid? You have no training for that. And now you want to talk about limiting beliefs. My guardians those two little guards outside the gate, holy hell, Doc. They were on a field trip with me. There was just bombardment. You're going to die. You have no idea what you're doing. You don't have the right gear. You've never been past 10,000 feet in your life. What are you doing? What are you on a death wish? I mean, it was nonstop bombardment until I finally got to Kilimanjaro. And then I realized over that journey, and I ended up summiting, no drugs, no altitude sickness, but I learned something from the Tanzania people, and it's a Swahili saying that says pole pole, and it means slowly, slowly. And you learn breathing is the only way you're going to survive altitude sickness, and the only way you're going to survive this. And you start at the bottom, and most people start life the exact same way. And Kilimanjaro has been a great, beautiful teacher. She's an amazing queen. She's been here for 1 billion years, so she's seen a lot. And she's like, look, if you try to start doing these breathing technique on base camp at 15,000 feet before you go to summit, you're never going to make it. And that's how we approach business. And that's often how we approach our relationships. That's most often how we approach self-transformation. It starts at the base of the mountain. Before you start, when you don't feel like you're being stressed, that's when you start. And you start with one breath in. And as you breathe in and you inhale, it's 4 steps forward. As you exhale, it's 4 steps. And as you ascend the mountain, that becomes shorter and shorter till ultimately it's 1 step, 1 breath. Well, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, Doc, but isn't 1 step, 1 breath how we're supposed to live anyways? Duh.
Absolutely.
It only took me 48 years to at least get that lesson. And I really bring it back to the hypnosis again. Our auto-hypnosis is so powerful. People don't realize how powerful our parasympathetic and our sympathetic systems is, and our subconscious automation. Even now in this conversation, there's 400 things going on between Doc and I, and we're only thinking about 2 because we're never taught the rules of the conscious mind. Like, hey, the conscious mind in and of itself is linear in time. It, as you said so eloquently, it's either focusing on an imaginary future event or it's reliving some past event. It's never present. Which is why it's easier, 5 times as easy to get into your subconscious osmotically, and you pick up a belief structure that sounds like an innocuous statement that you heard at a cocktail party, and next thing you know, you believe it.
For full show notes and transcript of today's episode, go to therapybites.podbean.com.
Welcome to Social Media Smackdown. Tonight, the irresistible force meets the illogical object. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to reason!
Hey guys, Doc Heath here, back on another segment of Social Media Smackdown. I get debates on social media all the time, talking about people being abused in this way and people being abused in that way, and people being abused because someone moved their cheese and somebody ate their cheese and somebody gave away their cheese. Listen up. If you want a sure way to overactivate your fight or flight system, we're talking about the amygdala there, then go ahead and call everything abuse. But calling everything we dislike in relationships, did you call me a doo-doo head, a boo-boo head, a ding-ding head? Calling everything we experience abuse is quite sabotaging and actually an insult to those who are actually abused. Here's a quick litmus test. If you can't prosecute the person who committed this, quote, abuse, then it ain't abuse. Restructure your thinking, calm down that amygdala. You may not like it, you may not prefer it, you may not choose it, but things that are difficult that come from another person's behavior do not equal abuse. Label it something different, because abuse is something different. Abuse is illegal, and if it's not illegal, then guys, it ain't abuse. Doc Heath out.
What a slobber knocker! The winner by Psychological Smackdown, Doc Heath! No pronouns were harmed during the production of this podcast.
You're listening to Therapy Bites Art Lab, bite-sized therapy for your brain with Dr. Heath and the TBAL Team. The best advice on the net. No copay required.
Welcome to the Therapy Bites Art Lab Library, where we have poured over thousands of volumes to bring you the latest Couch Crumbs quote. Oh, would you like a napkin? You're getting crumbs in the book.
That okay. Me eat book.
Oh. And now today's Couch Crumbs quote.
Good evening. The most important element on the periodic table of human life is H3, head held high.
A quote by Doc Heath.
Oh, you got crumbs on the couch. Extra points for you.
Live the art life. Become a TBAL Teammate Inner Circle supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/therapybites.
Here's Heath and the T-Ball Team.
Absolutely. And you know, something I've been wanting to say is it's alarming in the public school system, certainly in the U.S., but probably other places as well, that we go to school and we are taught what to think. Think this, think that, think the other thing. But never are we taught how to think. I remember no classes until, well, maybe my philosophy classes, where I was really taught how to think, or even that I had the ability to think.
Class asks you to think about what you're thinking about, right?
Sure.
That's why it's called philosophy. It's not called religion. It's not called psychology. It's asking you to think about what you think.
That's right.
And it's fluid. Nothing that we teach in school is fluid. It's structured.
It is.
And
it's all by rote. Repeat this, repeat this, repeat this. That's how we learn the multiplication tables. But life is not just a simple multiplication table. It's more dynamic than that. It's more fluid than that. We have to be taught how to think, and we're just not. I mean, we leave that piece out. I think that we give our thoughts too much credit. I find patients and they just simply give their thoughts too much credit, and not to shock our audience, but get this. I can think about stripping naked, painting my body purple, and running down the interstate. Well, now that would be embarrassing for me, but other people more than me, so I won't do it. I'd really wind up with 1 million followers, though. You know, Doc painted the purple Doc and the nude purple Doc. But I can think of that, but what does that mean? I get to assign value to thoughts, and I get to decide which thoughts don't have value. Here's the problem with suicide. I can think of that too. That is simply a thought, but I get to decide if it has value or not. And of course, I choose to believe that it has no value.
Can we play, Doc? Can we
Yes.
play? Since you're on the couch and I'm in the chair, we might as well just have some fun here and let the audience have. So let's play that game, because that's a great example. I mean, we literally, again, Doc and I have not met before, listeners. We are doing this organically and as authentically as you see it. It's happening in real time or listening to it. You said, for example, I can think that, and then I can have the right, the value, the choice to assign a value. Now, think about that statement. That means there's still two things going on. A, where did the thought come from in and of itself? And whom of your personality parts is judging whether it has a value? And then what value system, what belief system have you subscribed to? What values drive your belief system? What meta programs of your actions are enforcing it? Are you then assigning said value to?
Absolutely.
Right? That's the exact look I get from everybody else. I'm like, because we never taught them anything that you and I just said.
It's a deer in the headlights because they're thinking, what the crap are you talking about? What are you smoking?
Right. People are like, exactly. And I'm like, well, apparently I'm smoking what you aren't, because I at least have the awareness to go time out. By the time we're 40, on average, give or take, we have about 40 different personality parts running in our head. Now, that does not make you schizophrenic. It makes you neurotic.
Yeah.
Because each one of our personality parts, and there's a simple way to define it, which is why we used archetypal symbology in the quest to make it fun. Because you and I could go down a rabbit hole and we'll geek out on all our clinical terms because we love this stuff.
Oh, we do.
But to John Q. Public, who is just trying to raise a family, get a successful life, and enjoy it before the frickin' thing's over, because it goes by in a snapshot, they're over there running around again in the dark, beating their head against the wall and expecting to become a damn door. And when it doesn't, they get even more frustrated with themselves. And now we have a compounding effect, which we teach legacy to legacy, father to son, mother to daughter. The list goes on. And so we go, well, wait a minute. If we have 40 personality parts running around in our head, and each one has a different set of values, each one has a different set of belief systems, each one has a different emotional trauma or business trauma, so it shouldn't have a different thematic, then it would seem to me the most logical, if I can use that term in this conversation at all without jesting myself, I'll have fun and call it logical. The most logical deductive process is everything in this world has a blueprint. You build a house from a blueprint. We build cities from blueprints. We build internet from blueprints. We build tunnels and funnels, all from blueprints. How come we do not provide a fundamental blueprint of, okay, welcome to planet Earth. These are the rules of your conscious mind. These are the ones how your subconscious works. This is what the emotional traumatic level is going to do. Here's what your belief systems are. Here's your higher value systems. Here's your value systems. Here's what beliefs. How do they all work? And by the way, here's the theme or thematic that's going to run that, or deepest of emotions or themes. When we move into themes like fun, you can always drop back into that thematic. And if you start with fun, it immediately starts to shift in an upward manner. We approach transformation from outside in. Conscious guard at the gate, like we've talked about this whole interview, gets inside the castle. Now it's subconscious. It's influencing what's happening inside the castle. Now we're inside the castle. We go to the dungeon. Yeah, we haven't talked about the dungeon yet. The dungeon yet is where all our trauma is. This is where, when we're in our transformational stage and the subconscious modeling, somewhere between, call it 9 and 14, we're trying to fit into the world. We start shaving off edges of our personality. I start shaving off that I don't laugh as loud, or I don't wear this color this way, or I'm going to walk a certain way. I'm going to slunch my shoulders so I don't look as tall, or I'm going to, do whatever it is I do to fit into said group. And we start shaving off edges of our personality. Well, they got to go somewhere because you don't really get rid of them. That's another hypnotic illusion. They're still there. So what do? We stuff them in the dungeon of our castle. Well, some of those things, they get pretty, upset being in that dungeon for a while, and they start kind of evoking themselves. Now we see that in anger bursts. We see this in obsessive behavioral structures. We see this in alcohol or drug abuse. We see this in relationship failure. We see it in self-sabotage. There's a million of them. It goes 100 different directions. So we haven't got to the dungeon yet. And then the last part of that is, what is the theme of your life? Like for me, if you look at my entire career, I said, well, wait a minute. If life has an end point, and I quote the great Alan Watts here, beautiful philosopher, undoubtedly known. Amazing philosopher. I mean, just iconic. One of the greats of all time, in my opinion. Like Alan said, life doesn't define death. Death defines life. Death is imminent. Life's a choice. So we all have this golden ticket, Doc, to get on this train called death. And it's non-negotiable. You can't buy it. You can't out-talk it. You can't hypnotize it. You can't sex with it. It don't care. It's already got your number. Now, the question is, how are you going to board that train? You're going to board it on a bullet train where you've experienced life and had a blast and experienced everything experientially, not materialistically, although that's a part of it, but it really starts as a subset of experientially. Everything I want to experience in this life. That is the authenticity I was referring to in the back part of our interview, because we really say things like, well, I'm being authentic. Oh, are you now? Well, that's just my game. Barry, let's play. So let's play. Oh, really? So if you only had 30 days left to live, is there anything in your life right now that you wouldn't be doing? And every time I ask that question, I've been asking it for 30 years, they go, yeah. And I go, then you're not being authentic to you.
Yeah.
You're lying to yourself, which is the ultimate form of self-hypnosis. Now, you cognitively know that, meaning you consciously are aware of it. Now, whether you learned that in a book or Dr. Heath, Man on the Moon, I don't know, I don't care, but you did. But do you know how to transform it? If not, then you are subject to the whims of a man-made mind, your own. And then you wonder why life is never exactly the way you want it. That's what the ultimate business quest is about. Is like, look, mastery starts with your body. It doesn't start with your mind. Your mind is the last thing to transform itself. Because if we're not down here in the dungeon, we're not really driving into, well, hey, you know what? I really want to go live in another country. Then go. What are you waiting for? Yeah, but, and now all of a sudden we're back up at the rationalization. Well, then you're ignoring what your dungeon is telling you. Your emotional traumatic level saying, I need this healing or I need this adventure. However you want to define it. We need to go down there and do that. From there, the subconscious will immediately start to change itself. The neuropathology happens almost instantaneously. It is a super dynamic, amazing computer. Even all the computers and the devices every one of you is listening to this amazing show on right now can't hold a freaking candle.
Oh, exactly.
It's insanely amazing. And we never use it because if people found out how powerful they were, well, hell, we'd have no governments. We'd have no control. Well, we don't want that. That doesn't serve the greater good of our power agenda. But if you really look at when people really step back, and this is where science and faith somewhere have to converge, and they're getting closer now to finally go, yep, this amazing anatomical thing, the spacesuit that we call being human, is an amazing thing. But like I said a minute ago in the interview, if you believe you're going somewhere after death, then you must subscribe to the philosophy you came from somewhere.
Yeah.
Because the meat suit stays here. The body stays here. The mind stays here. Therefore, to say that we start a sequence with mind first is insane. It's asinine.
That brings to mind one of my favorite quotes, and I think I read this, back in the mid-'80s, if memory serves, but we are not human beings on a spiritual journey. We are spirits on a human journey. And and it's only part of the story. It's only part of the story.
But if I say, let's play that game, Doc. But if I say to you, I say, hey, I'm a spiritual being having human experience, which, you and I subscribe to that, and I've been saying it. I think most people on earth subscribe to it in some form or another, but we don't live that way.
No.
So right away, we're not authentic again. We're full of crap. So why not go back to the simplest and most basic dynamic? Fun.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, time flies when you're having fun. There's one of our old isms of life, right? But that isms are around for a reason. Cliches are around because they've had a myriad of sampling of experience of statistical probability, which is why they're called cliche.
Of course.
Right? But let's be honest. If time flies when we're having fun, don't you want to be on that bullet train experiencing your entire life? And yes, your life flies by, but you experience everything. And then when you finally jump on that plane with that train with that golden ticket to death, then you've experienced everything. That's a legacy. That's different. That's different because the legacy of you isn't just your monetary, although that's a part of it. It is the lessons you've learned, the awarenesses you've come to, the training of the next generation of this is your conscious, this is your subconscious, this is your emotional traumatic, this is your thing, this is the blueprint. Here's an adventure map we call the ultimate business quest. I want you to take the adventure of a freaking lifetime and go from founder to funding to fortune and whatever that means for you. And you can apply it to every person you meet. What if meeting people became a game? Like, it boggles my mind, Doc, if I came to you and you know this, the number one fear is still public speaking, which boggles my mind to this world. Because here's the fundamental flaw. No matter what business you're in, you are in the people business.
Sure.
So to be afraid of people immediately, well, here we go. We're right back to where we started, Doc. We're right back to your first limiting belief structure. I'm in the people business, but I'm scared to death to talk to people or be in front of them. Well, that kind of makes it hard to put the message out about what you do. So right away, we quell our passion. Right away, we start compressing our purpose. Then we start letting go of our dream and we replace it with this beautiful thing called hope. And then we stop moving on creating what we really want to create in the beautiful divinity creatures that we are, as we just said a moment ago. And we move into, well, this is as good as it gets. Because I believe out of all this conversation, and Doc, I would love your thoughts on this. I'm going to throw it back to you. Our entire mission with the Ultimate Business Quest is everybody have these tools and have it for free. There's no excuses. All you got to do is just download the app and knock yourself out. It's Ultimate Business Quest. It's e-rating for everybody. Your family can do it. Your kids can do it. It's designed that way. But it's real world based on what we're talking about here and much, much more, but applied from all the business experience of the 75 people in this company who are all amazing masters themselves. But let's get back to the reality check. Our first limiting belief structure is we can't live the life the way we want to. And then we reinforce it every single freaking day.
Every day, every moment.
Every day, better said. So when you look at that philosophy and I go back, I go, okay, Doc, well, let's play. If I've got these things, how come I don't have the blueprint? How come I'm afraid to be in business, go make money, but I'm afraid to talk to people? That's impossible. Right away, we've already got a crevasse that's so wide between our business and our personal development. There's your first bifurcation of those, and we're columnizing. Now we're starting to segregate and dissect ourselves into these little fragments. I'm like, whoa. You're not fragmented. You're not broken. You're just a diamond has a different edge. And when that edge is shining in the light, it refracts slightly differently.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because that's one of my high value targets. Is this nonsense that I'm a broken person?
Right.
I mean, come on. Talk about sabotaging thinking.
Well, if God doesn't make mistakes, however you define God, then how the hell can you be broken, Doc?
Yeah.
Is it possible? Is it possible? Every one of you listening, I'm going to challenge you. All you right now, you're going to get really upset. You need to be. Watch why you get upset. Watch that little guardian talk. That's when you're going to realize there's two people in this conversation, and it's not Doc and I. It's you and you. Right. And that is, if you are this spiritual being having a human experience, and God doesn't make mistakes, then how in the name of God, whatever you define God is, can you ever be broken? Is it possible that you at a soul level, at a spiritual level, before you came into this human being existence, again, remember, if you're going somewhere, you came from somewhere in order to be in this human meat suit, because it stays here. Therefore, is it possible that you subscribed to all those things that you deemed dark, that were traumatic, that were horrible, that from rape and abuse and psychological and physical and poverty and all these things that we experience, aren't they too a part of the human journey? Because the illusion that we struggle with, and then I offer all of you right now, is everyone seeks to become enlightened. You already are freaking enlightened. You're never not enlightened. That's the illusion of the self-help industry, is that you need to become more aware and consciously elevated. BS, you already are. What is happening is you are running so far and so fast from your dungeon, because light and darkness are equal. You're not enlightened and there's the absence of darkness. Darkness doesn't mean evil. Darkness is where the truth lives. And here it comes, kids. Let's have some fun. I'm on Doc's couch, so I'm just going to play. Here's the deal. Let's look at how we really operate in the dark. When we go out on a date, we go out to candlelight dinner. We go to the movie theater. We go to a nightclub. Then we generally have sex in the dark. Now, isn't the irony that we have all of these very intimate, very connected moments in the dark? And that's because we're afraid in the light, quote unquote, for people to see who we really are. We'll be judged from it, starting with ourselves. So light and darkness, if you want to qualify those things, are equal. Look at the universe. Light and dark are equal. In some cases, darkness is more prevalent due to time and space and the size of the universe. But the light, the sun as an example, is so prolific that we go, well, I want to be like that. You are both. And for you to say that you are only an enlightened creature, you are full of crap. And here's why. You are not acknowledging the darkness in you. You're acting like it doesn't exist, which, by the way, further validates you're a divinative creature. You're a divine creature, because only a divine creature can make itself forget itself.
Yeah, good point.
Just saying. So when we're afraid to look at these things, it's because in our case, and I'm going to hold us accountable, I'm talking about all of us in the field. And this is not a smack for those who are doing the work. It is the reality check is we have so many freaking rules of what we can and cannot say, which is why I have no licenses. I'm a free man. I speak my mind and I speak my opinion and I give it away. And if they don't like it, well, kiss my bahooties, because I'm here to actually help people transform themselves, because every therapist, whatever your therapy you subscribe to, knows that they're doing the work. We're just the guide. So cut the crap.
Sure.
Let's just teach them. Let's just give them the blueprint and make it fun, and then elevate human consciousness, if you like that language, on a global scale. But let's do it in something that everyone can apply to and immediately see tangible, convincing, subconscious changing results, which is their business life. That's the easiest low-hanging fruit. The next will be your body. For if you can't master your body, you can't master anything. Just get over yourself. You're mentally masturbating. We're back to that again. And that's okay if you like mentally masturbating, but at least own that you are. And that's okay too. Right?
Albert Ellis, famous psychologist from New York, long since years past, would talk about masturbating, and people get off into, it must be this way, it must be that way. This is what I was taught. It must be this way. And it's masturbating.
Yeah, it is. And it is that mental staring at the ceiling fan, worrying about how I'm going to do this, or why haven't I done that? And if mom and dad had done this, I mean, oh my God, how much time is wasted? Now, if we go back to that 30-day question, now, and my dad personified that question to the irony. I mean, literally to the irony. I have been asking that question for 20 years. When I walk out on stage, I go, hey, if you only had 30 days left to live, would you be doing anything you're doing in your life right now? And if any part of your answer is no, then you have an obligation to yourself to change it instantaneously based on what you really want, not what you're doing. Well, my father personified that in the most strangest of ways, and it ultimately took his life. And this goes right before COVID and before we released the sequel to The Secret, the Beyond the Secret film that I co-produced and co-star with all the other great teachers. And it was like the hour before I went down to do the first media junket, my ex-wife had called and said, hey, I got some news for you, T. I said, what's up? She says, hey, your father passed about a week ago. I said, and she tells me the story, and it literally goes like this. They walk in, they say, Mr. Fox, hey, health checked out great. Everything looks good. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. You got pancreatic cancer stage 4. You got 30 days left to live. And 30 days later, he was gone. Never called me, never called his sons. And I don't say that to throw my father on the bus or that I have anger issues. Quite the opposite. To show you the repression of self, the stuffing of the emotions, of the emotional traumatic level, the dungeon, to use the metaphor, if we're going to go in that space. If it's not expressed with great doctors like Dr. Heath and all of you other transformational therapists out there, if we're not teaching people how to do it, and you're making your patients reliant upon you, behold, I challenge you, you are malpracticed. Yes, you are the freaking problem. You're the freaking problem. And that's where the Business Quest came and said, BS, we're going to wipe this thing out. There is a model for therapy. Yes, there is. I'm a firm believer of it. And it belongs there when we're dealing with specific issues. But when we're dealing with, how do I grow my business? How do I deal with my neurosis? How do I help my kids not become like me and learn the skills that I didn't have? Well, boys and girls, that comes back to what we do over here on this side of the couch. This is where it's fun, and everybody needs to have it. The problem is, and I quote Dr. Heath on this one, just because you read a book doesn't make you a coach. So shut up, right? Just because you went to a Tony Robbins seminar doesn't make you an NLP master. You have no idea what the hell's going on. It's taken years for him to master that. And Bandler was the father of us all. So let's cut the crap. So when we really start looking at these things, a coach is a really grossly overused word for the therapeutic interventional sequencing. What we do back over here is we're coach. We're quest guides. We're all going on an adventure together. We're going to guide you from our particular little area of, and I quote my fingers for those of you not seeing the video side, expertise. That's why there's 75 of us in the company, because each one of us has our mastership, but none of us is a true ultimate top shelf master. I have never met one, bar the divinity, great architect, him or herself, however you define that. The rest of us are on this journey and adventure. So why not keep it on this side of the couch, right? And when there's a time for a significant scenario, then you move over to Doc's side of the couch. In the meantime, let's give us the blueprint. This is where architectural psychology was born. It was going, there is an architectural blueprint of the process we've been talking about in this entire interview. It's free. It's called the Ultimate Business Quest. Download it on your phone today, Apple and Android. It's an e-rating for everybody. Go on the adventure, but we've gamified it because it's fun. If it's fun, Doc, we'll do it. If it's not fun, we will resist it. Even if it's the thing that we need, we won't do it. We will not do it. So we made it fun. And the way we made it fun is we started with basic archetypal symbology. And I'm not talking about Jungian symbology, although that's really kind of the father of us all. I'm talking about a system that we used and tested and applied for 2 decades at the #1 residential at-risk youth center in the United States, which is my partner, Aaron Huey. So between architectural, me, and Aaron Huey, an archetypial, we put the two together and said, well, wait a minute, we can have deep, heady conversations like Doc and I are having right now. And he and I are geeking out because we're two geeks and dorks who love this crap. But for John Q. Public, he goes, I don't want to go through all the schooling that all you guys did. Can you just tell me how to break through this glass ceiling, this limiting belief structure? Bingo. We're going to show you how to build a company, a culture. We're going to be a fearless people because you're going to find them intriguing. What if you could walk up and ask 2 questions to anybody? And these 2 questions are so non-invasive, but you immediately know who you're talking to. Are they a warrior? Are they a wizard? Are they a bard? Are they a jester? And when you start seeing that, you immediately know how to talk. I'm not talking about NLP modeling. I'm not talking about mirroring and matching. I'm talking about archetypal profiling, personality typing, so you can understand, because all of us are a warrior. All of us are a wizard. All of us are a bard or a jester. Now, there's 16 in our entire system, 64 when you go all the way out through the hybrids. So when you start to explore personality theory, instead of the way doing it that you and I did, Doc, which is like watching chalk dry twice on a wall, just, this is boring. I don't know how to apply this junk. What if we made it fun? Because if time flies when you're having fun, and when you were a kid and you were a master, you could play for hours. You never ran out of energy. You were excited. You were passion, purpose, mission, and vision. You were on it, man. You were the $6 million man. You were Wonder Woman. You were the Power Rangers. You whatever you were, you instantly dropped into it. There wasn't, well, I don't think I have the right shoes on for this, Doc. And maybe the environment doesn't look right. The timing's not, the economy's not there. There's all these. Shut up. You just did it because you're a transformational creature. And I'll quote you again, Doc, and I'm in my own agreement. You are a spiritual being having a human experience. You came from somewhere. You're going to go to somewhere. So while you're here, it is time for you to wake your butt up from your own self-hypnosis of the meat suit, the body, the brain, to remember who you are. And you do that in a fun way. Now, everything that we've discussed, every topic isn't as daunting. It's not scary. It doesn't trigger your fight or flight. You don't go limbic. You can stay in your prefrontal cortex. You can be aware and go from, conscious incompetence to conscious competence. Go from subconscious incompetence to subconscious competence, where I become the king and queen of my own life. And well, I hate to break it to you, boys and girls, but if you're the king and queen of your own life, doesn't that mean you've remembered who you are?
I think so.
Every theology says you are created in the image thereof. Okay. So therefore, when we come down through the I always quote Star Trek on this one. I'm like, when you get beamed down, beam me down, Scotty. I got down to the planet. We got beamed down from wherever we came from. And then in that process, there's a little amnesia that goes on. You get a little foggy, right? And crap, I'm in this little spacesuit that's about this big. I'm about 9 pounds when I'm first born. And I'm like, I don't remember coming through the incubator. What happened? Where am I? And you're taking it all in. But then all of a sudden you start to remember. And when you remember who you are, then it's fun, because then you accept that death is imminent, quoting great Alan Watts. Yeah. Life is a choice. Now you can choose, and you have a blueprint. And it's not say, walk as Travis walks or walk as Dr. Heath walks. It's, here is the schematic of how you build a house. You can build it any way you want. You can modify it because you have the blueprint. You can design it. You can paint it. You can put it wherever you want on the planet. You can pick it up and move it if you want. Some are even mobile. But you choose. Because that is what I am really stands for. That is the architectural level of who you are, the thematic level of you are. I am fun. I am happy. I am confident. Pick the theology. It echoes it. So if we change our sequencing and we put the thematic of fun and we give a blueprint and we start with the lowest hanging fruit, which is your business model, right? And now in more than in any time in history of known man, you can become extraordinarily wealthy in days, months, maybe 2 or 3 years. Whereas in our generation, we were growing up, it was the 40-40 plan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you went into marketing or something like that, and maybe you discovered gold while you're out panhandling on a vacation, and all of a sudden, bang, you're a billionaire. But back then, billionaire didn't exist in our language. When we were growing up, billionaire was some fantasy land that you played with, Donald Duck's rich cousin.
Oh, sure. One of my favorite shows, Gilligan's Island. Right. They had a millionaire on the boat, not a billionaire. And one of the things that comes to mind is how we often sacrifice our free will to old patterns of thinking. And I love astronomy. My son and I, we love to get out the telescope and look at the moon and the stars. And
I love Scorpio and Sagittarius. They're my favorite.
Oh, that's awesome. We love finding the North Star, and you can see on some clear nights Mars and Jupiter and Venus, and I love the stars in the skies. But Neil deGrasse Tyson, famous, I think he's an astrophysicist maybe, but he talks that we're all ultimately made of stardust anyway.
Absolutely.
And in sacrificing our free will, based on what Dr. Travis just said, we each forget who we are. We forget that we are the children of royalty, and we thereby just get satisfied with the status quo, and that's to our own undoing. And to reverse that, you have to go back to what Dr. Travis has said the entire episode, and that is the framework of how the mechanism works and how thinking works and how you're in charge of that. You get to decide what kind of castle you're going to build. But let me just add one thing here. It's been my experience that you can never outrun, I've not used this terminology before, but bar Dr. T's terminology, you can never outrun your dungeon. You can never outrun your dungeon. I have had soldiers who fought in Vietnam who are still back mentally in Vietnam. And it has ruined their relationships, their business, it has ruined their health. You can never outrun your dungeon, so it's best to start sweeping up right there.
And making that fun, right? Because again, we work our 501c3 does, it has a couple of mandates. One is autism, one is sex traffic survivors. Our CEO is a sex traffic survivor herself, so we're really intimate in that. And then obviously military. My whole family, my father's side was military. My son is special forces, my eldest son. And we love our veterans out there because they paid the price already. They paid the price for all of us to do what we're doing right here on this thing. And the way that they are treated often when they come back is an absolute travesty. It's a joke. And it's insane to me. They have paid the price that we didn't. So we are, in my opinion, are beyond obligated to ensure that the things that they have seen and done on our behalf and the travesties and the horrific things that war tends to bring need to be addressed. And they don't need to pay a dime for it. They need the top shelf quality for it. And they need affordable housing. They need all those things. And I agree with you on the soldiers thing. And that's where we go back to fun, because if I ask a soldier to go back to Afghanistan and they've seen the things that they've seen, they're not going to want to go to that dungeon. That dungeon is the scariest place that you can imagine. And yeah, you're right. You can't outrun it. And you're right. It becomes a self-saboteur from the inside out. It is the Machiavellian experience, and we don't know how to stop it, which makes us even more nuts, especially to someone like a soldier who is a trained operator. And all of a sudden, I can't control these faculties that I used over there to do the things that I was asked to do by my country and by my commanding officers. I come back here, I have no idea how to apply them. Same thing with us in a much different scale. Whatever your trauma is, it's your trauma. It doesn't matter whether it's compared to somebody else or not, it's yours. Now, the difference is, though, if you run from it, like Doc was talking about, it will find you because it's with you all the time. So what if we shift the entire thematic? What if we make it fun? When I go down the dungeon, I can identify, okay, that's a warrior, that's my wizard, that's a bard, that's a jester. And I understand what those mean. I understand their thought processes. And now I can start using those and reintegrate those things from the dungeon back up to the front line or into the subconscious or outside my castle walls, depending on what your analogy is. Because here's what, then this is the invitation. I think this is the biggest thing that we haven't talked about yet, but it is the underpinning, I think, is the number one disease of humanity, and more prolific now than it has been in our time, but even especially coming out of this last couple of years. And it's a poem that we actually designed, and it's an invitation for all of you. And it sounds like this. This isn't about being forged in fire to see if you can take the heat, because you've already done that. This isn't about being hammered and folded 1,000 times to see if you can get back up and how tough you are. You've already done that too. It's not about being plunged into water and being arisen anew and baptized into something else. You've already done that as well. For what is a man or a woman without passion, purpose, mission, vision, to leave a legacy and to cut through your BS and to truly get to the truth and rescue your life, your business, your heart, your relationships from mediocrity? Do you accept this quest? Because that's the quest of your life, and that's the ultimate business quest. And everything we do in this company is rescuing ourselves from mediocrity, which starts with, back to you and I, Doc, it starts with our own auto hypnosis. We are hypnotizing ourselves into mediocrity and then hypnotizing ourselves to believe that mediocrity is good enough, that it's okay, it's good as it gets. That is all a load of crap, because if you believe anything that you believe in your theology, belief structures, your ideology, your religion, whatever it is you believe, if you believe there's a divine creature that's above all of this and that's where you're going to go hang out, for you to say that mediocrity is okay is to say that your belief is just less than. That divinity isn't really divinity, and you'll never do that. So why would you do that to yourself? This is about rescuing ourselves from the mediocrity that our educational system, specifically in this country and other countries, but the United States, is rescuing us from that. That's what the quest is all about. That's why we made it free. And if you can't say, well, it doesn't have value, I got to charge you $30,000 to have some of the best. Shut up. You're a charlatan and you're a shark. And I know, because I used to be one. So I can talk a lot of crap, and I will, because I was the guy that also said, go to the back of the room and buy my stuff for $30,000. And I knew that 98% of you would never do it when you walked out the door. And I said that was good enough and that was okay. Well, it's not. And in my opinion, it should be fun. Let's do it all together. Let's have a blast. Let's go quest, because we all have the same outcome: broke and dead.
That's right.
Now the question is, you leave a legacy. Did you leave your legacy? And I don't care. Legacy doesn't necessarily mean materialistically or financially, although that can be a part of it. It means the wealth of you. Did you leave a legacy behind? Do we know that you were here? What was your contribution that Doc was talking about? We need you to be the most authentic, dynamic, fully expressed, dungeon walking around light and dark person, individual, human that you could be. That's the quest that you're on. So I challenge all of you in the most fun way. Let's go on the adventure of a lifetime, download the app, and let's start transforming your life, because self-help sucks. Self-transformation, that's who you are. That's what you've always been, because you're a divine creature, and only the divine creature can transform. A lion doesn't become a giraffe because he thinks about it. It doesn't work that way, kids. They are a lion and they're a giraffe. We are the only creature on this planet that can transform themselves, their job, their employment, their relationship. You can be poly, you can be mono, you can be whatever you choose to be about whatever you choose to be. The problem is you forgot and you got hypnotized to believe that mediocre was okay.
That is amazing. And I cued the applause a bit too early there, because that deserves some applause in itself. And by the way, for those listening, with Dr. Travis's permission, I'm going to put that poem, because that is so powerful, I'm going to put that in the show notes so that you can incorporate that into your thinking. I'll also put in the show notes some ways to reach out and get in touch with Dr. Travis. This is all wonderful. Let me make it easy for you, Doc.
When you come to the quest and you open the app, that's the first thing you see is the poem. The scroll
rolls
out, says,
fantastic.
So I'm quoting right from the app. So you guys know when you get
that's
there,
awesome.
This is your quest. You're going to apply it to your business, but it's going to bleed into your body. It's called the BPR. You'll learn about it, and the app actually tracks, because most of us say we work 8 hours. Doc, don't tell anybody, but we tell everybody we work 8 hours a day. The average is about 3.5. So the app will track you, so you know what you're really doing, because again, you can't transform what you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So if I think I'm working 8 hours a day, then I've hypnotized myself to believe that either I'm A, super efficient, or B, I'm efficiently inefficient. Right. So it does all that. But that poem's right there for you. But the show notes, I would love it. Please, guys, go to theultimatebusinessquest.com, download it. It's on your Apple and Android store. You can't miss it. You'll see the logo on my hat for those of you in the video. If not, Doc will put it in the thing. But do it. Because, guys, I'm asking now, if you don't mind, Doc, I'd like to ask your audience for help, because this is where I need your help.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Nobody is self-made. I don't believe in that comment. I loathe those words when I'm self-made. No, you're not. That's a narcissist. Right? If you believe you're self-made, you're a narcissist. You need to go get on Doc's couch. You got to work some stuff out. That's the bottom line. I'm not that kind of doctor. You go talk to him. Bottom line is, here's the deal. In order for us to transform the educational system, we all have to do it together. That's why we made this app free. And this app is not just, but wait, there's all the stuff you can buy. It's all there, guys. Everything you need to go from founder funding to fortune is in this. And you're questing with people all over the world. If we all quest together, the power has always been in the people. It has never been in government. It has never been in a single individual leader. It is the power of the people. If we all get together and we start doing it ourselves and we start teaching our kids now what we didn't get taught, we do it together as an app. We reunite the family unit. We make dinner time fun and playful again, where we're going, hey, what part of the quest are you in? What have you done? Well, have you sound Alchemy Mountain? Are you in the Tomb of Treasures? Have you gone to the Pit of Excuses yet? No, oh crap, what's that about? And we're having conversational dialogue at the dinner table now about a common thread. We can address topics that aren't scary anymore between parent and child. That's the first legacy. That's the first thing that we do. And we could do it as a family. Now we transform the school systems inside or out. It doesn't matter, because these kids get entrepreneurial skills. Well, they're masters. Before they get to the suppression, compression, and oppression we've already talked about, they stay masterful. And nowadays they can become multi-millionaire and billionaires and change the world and stay in their mastership and truly leave a legacy. So please, I'm asking all of you, help us download the app. It's absolutely free. We're giving it all away because we know the only way it can transform is if we do it together. And our company culture is a hashtag. It's YGWG. It stands for You Go, We Go. And it's our entire philosophy for everybody in the company. So when one division goes a direction, everybody goes there. It's
Awesome.
No questions asked. Trust, loyalty, and communication, fun. That's our core company values, and that is our thematic. We live it, we breathe it, just like you, Doc, which is why I was so grateful when you asked me on the show. I'm like, there's a man who's walking his talk. Hell yeah, I'll be on the show. I'll be on it twice on Sunday, all day long, because that makes it fun, right? Because I'm a big
I really
dork.
appreciate what you said there about doing it together. You go, we go, because it's like the what was it? The kindergarten book that talked about life is best lived the way we crossed the road in kindergarten. That is together and holding hands. And I thank you for being on the show and holding our hand today, Dr. T. We appreciate all the work that you do. Thank you so much. Go click on the link. That'll be up in the show notes. And I'm sure Dr. T would love to hear from you, as would we. We'll catch you next time on Therapy Bites Art Lab. Give us a thumbs up in the show notes there. We always appreciate your comments and your likes. And you guys go out and make it a great one. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye now.
Welcome to On the Couch and Off Our Rocker with Dr. Ima Freudnot, where we review our special guest Therapy Bites Art Lab episode, Psychomolarchy Scale Assessment Results. That's PMS for short.
Dr. Travis Fox's PMS performance places him in the 98th percentile on the PMS's STSS, Stratospheric Transformation Success Scale. This indicates a startlingly high neurological degree of soaring successinitis in Dr. T's cortical crevices, and a terrifying tendency toward tackling towering turns of fortune, whether north and south, in all kinds of weather and mental drought. Overall, Dr. Travis Fox's PMS psychosillimetric assessment results present a picture of an individual preponderously predisposed to coachomolitis in an effort to ignite global human thought based on transmogrification, but who tames these torrential, implicit, impactful impulses by teaming with top talent to unveil new opportunities and skyrocket clients to new heights of success. This insidiously inspiring soul has a dire prognosis of deepening his own roots into the soil of success and rooting for others to do the same in the near future, until these deviously delectable dramatic features of his psyche have been psychomologically analyzed and exercised. It is my considered conclusion that my coadjutor colleague, Dr. Travis Fox, be prescribed no less than a QID dose of You Can Do It All, and an adjunct PRN dose of transformatol to quickly curtail any and all captious conquest-limiting cognitions. Dr. Ima Freudnot, Chief Stringstigator, Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Grab some of this episode's guest merchandise, specially designed to help keep this episode's message top of mind in your life. Don't forget friends and family members who could use an Art Lab mental boost too. Just go to therapybites.myshopify.com.
Hey, T-Ballers. Thanks so much for being with us today. If we brought value to your day, show us some love by leaving your positive feedback and inviting some friends to listen in and join the TBAL Team. Next time on Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Hey T-Ballers, welcome to another great episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab. Today on deck, Dr. Noah St. John, and we have a special treat for you guys. Dr. Noah's going to teach us about how to get rid of those habits that may be killing us, how to break our worst habit in 21 days or less without using willpower. And where do you even get that willpower stuff from anyway? Are you suffering from success anorexia? Well, Dr. Noah has the cure. How can you stop starving yourself of success? How can you take out the head trash that is burying you and keeping you stuck there? And how can you use the power habits that even the world's most successful people use, and they may not even know it? Also, stay tuned, and we'll tell you how to get a free copy. That's right, I did say the F word, free copy of Dr. Noah's new book, How to Get Rid of Your Head Trash About Money. But you can also use that with other things. Stay tuned. That's all coming up next on Therapy Bites Art Lab.
Government legal gobbledygook. Therapy Bites is not intended as a diagnostic or as an alternative to professional clinical treatment. Resources and advice are for information and entertainment purposes only. Brought to you by someone saying things you don't like? Tape that nagging loudmouth shut. Government-approved speech tape. Gas tape. Now available at your local hardware store. Therapy Bites Art Lab is not an approved, endorsed, authorized, butt-kissing affiliate of the United States Special Offense Assessment Police. SOAP for short. Warning. Consumption of Therapy Bites Art Lab content by Kool-Aid drinking, stinking, thinking, social media, pseudo-psychological pushing, wacky woke, anti-free speech, mumbo-jumbo advocates may cause spontaneous internal skull combustion, stomach discomfort, and or laxative effects. Allergy warning. Therapy Bites is manufactured in a facility that challenges nutty distortions, processes nuggets of accurate, realistic thinking, and life-affirming beliefs. This is the audio version of the legal fine print. Why are you still listening to this when you can catch the next great episode of Therapy Bites Art Lab with a good friend or family member? Really? Are you still there? This is getting silly. Move on to the next psychologically thrilling episode of the best advice on the net. No copay required.
Me eat copay.
Yeah, with Dr. Heath and the TBAL team. Go ahead, don't be podgoraphobic. Scoot, scoot, scoot. On to the next episode.